I honestly cannot believe it. This map is simultaneously the things that needed to happen to both Worldly World and PvP, respectively. The Stronghold just takes all of the bad things out of those game modes and then makes a map with what's left. It's so simple. They removed PvE stats from Worldly World, made it smaller so people waste less time walking towards things to do or other people, and then they automated the siege, and then they removed capture points from PvP. It's just brilliant. It's just, it's actually also mostly just Jade Quarry with a Guild Lord, except you also have to sort of like build your Jade Haulers. But even so, I mean, it's still like all of these things, I've wanted all of these things for so long in like a PvP mode, or just really any mode, I guess. I don't know what it would have been, but just these things are so good in the way that, I mean, I personally wanted PvP capture node sizes to like double, because at the moment it's sort of like in a state where I'm going to stand on this point, and then someone comes along and is like, I'm going to press a button on the point, and everyone's taking damage, because how do you not? The points are tiny and AoEs are enormous in this game. They're just point sized. It's very fair. Anyway, it makes the game pretty boring, but in any case, they still did everything they did with Stronghold is like they just read my mind to some extent. The only problem with Stronghold is that, as anything else in Guild Wars 2, it will inevitably be cheesed to all hell. The problem here is that Guild Wars 2 doesn't have any real class rules to define player action while in combat, especially when nobody has any tiny capture nodes to stand on. Like, what do you really do? What happens in Worldly World? We have blobs, or we run to like some sort of safety zone with other allies, or we force ourselves to limit the amount of people engaged in a certain encounter, and then force the people to be within a certain zone and fight each other in a specific way. That last one's probably the best out of all of them, just like in terms of design, because it's made by the players for the players. They understand what they're doing more or less, and they develop their own strategies. But the point is, though, is that like people need like an objective, because there's simply like nobody does anything but damage in this game. People forget that, like, in all game modes, or people don't really realize, I guess, or want to admit that in all game modes, the only consistent actions being performed by players is be invulnerable or deal damage, and sometimes both at the same time, because esports, naturally. But what all this means is that the onus is on the level design and gimmick mechanics in encounters in order to define player quote-unquote roles. The trouble here is that supply running is more or less the only action-specific and maybe even build-specific role other than kill enemies in the entirety of Stronghold. Enemies being either like the siege carriers or and like guard NPCs or other players. It's what it is. It doesn't help that Portal is automatically the best thing for this either. So here we go. Here's the projected future of this game mode. Step 1. Portal Mesmer is meta because of supply spike early in the game, followed by loads of door breakers, which leads to a victory because everyone is just going to walk in and press buttons on the NPCs. Portal Mesmers will run Condi or some other cancer with tanky stats to avoid, I say that like there's any other choice beside Condi or straight damage, even though it's all just untyped damage anyway. But in any case, they're going to be tanky to avoid being bursted down while they effectively perform some dumbed down version of Guild flag running throughout the course of the match until the Lord room opens up. Then they get to press buttons on the Lord, I guess, or something. So step 2 comes along. Teams start assigning people to guard doors and kill siege minions that are inevitably going to spawn, because not even a thief can... Well, a thief could maybe teleport fast enough to get to the Mesmer fast and then just like press buttons on him and harass him, because he's gonna do that, and he gets it for free because he can teleport in and out and blind people and go stealth and whatever pretty much instantly. But the point is that that's why the Mesmer's built tanky, so he can avoid getting ganked, and the fact that he's also going to probably be with like 3 other guys at least at that point, because who's not going to go to the siege circle or the supply circle and get all the stuff. So there's no way that people are going to be able to stop the portal getting dropped in some sort of like strategic area, more or less. It's just going to sort of happen. But so yeah, people are, instead of trying to like focus the Mesmer, They're just going to guard the siege minions that will inevitably be spawned by the portal siege bomb, and or supply bomb, I guess. I don't know whatever anyone's gonna call it. Anyway, while the Mesmers no doubt continue to keep running siege for days, because why would they not? Step 3, version 1, because there's 2 parts that like we can branch from here a little bit. Step 3. Everyone realizes that ganking people or NPCs in a relatively open map is the best way to control the flow of the movement of supplies. There's only 5v5, so I mean, if you can kill one person in a map that big, it'll probably make a pretty big difference. So we get Zerker Thief, Dagger Focus Ellie, Staff Ellie, or maybe a Zerker Necro. All these are probably going to be Zerker. Just because Zerker Necro, just because of its high base HP pool and the fact that he can press 1 and kill people too. That's not bad either. But mainly, they're there to gank siege creatures, because nobody can heal in this game. Nobody heals. Protection is a flat damage reduction that has no real interesting gimmicks or special abilities. It's all very plain, and it's not going to stop even something like a Zerker Necro from walking up to things, pressing well buttons, and then pressing 1. Or pressing Lich Form and then pressing 1. Things are going to die. So it's going to be focusing around killing the siege creatures, while everyone else, like, there'll probably be like 1, maybe 2 of these guys, and then the other 3 or 4 people on the team are just going to run passive builds like normal. Like, you just end up like PvP in the end, as it is now. The other option, and it's this is kind of funny. I mean, one option would be to have 4 people run with supply to spawn 4 door breakers simultaneously in order to group up their positioning, and then have a thief shadow refuge them as they walk. Then the thief would follow them, repeating an untargeted pistol 5 followed by a short bow 2 just on top of them because they're all grouped together, all the way to a door. However, this wouldn't stop teams from assigning door guards, and it probably wouldn't stop the door guards from seeing a slowly approaching series of red circles and explosions along the ground. I mean, that's a pretty, like, narrow-minded way of how this game's gonna play out, but, I mean, there's still so much good to talk about. Like, I say that, I'm pretty pessimistic about Guild Wars 2 things at this point in time. This game hasn't been well developed over the years in terms of, like, player versus player. That's certainly the case in any way. Like, it's never been very well balanced, it's never been very diverse. It's never been very complex at all. So I hesitate to say that maybe something really interesting will happen, and we'll see just the game just generally being very movement heavy and dynamic, and people just sort of like running into people and getting into fights, and then it just sort of like rolls from there based on how any given fight swings, which could be interesting to watch at least. I mean, probably interesting to play too, I suppose, but it'll probably be like better to watch than watch these 4 guys pile onto this point and then mask each other in particle effects so nobody can see what's happening, except we can watch the hit point bars like instantly go from full to bottom and back up and then go back, and just that'll be great, right? I still think that this game mode has the potential to be 8v8, but numbers tend to get out of control in Guild Wars 2 just because of the damage. The damage that matters in this game is 1, overtuned, and 2, it's typically instant. Not to mention the particle effects are everywhere, as I've mentioned before, and we all know that. I mean, that's no news to anybody. But even after all that, though, there's still some good to talk about. The obstacles, ledges, and terrain variance across the map is really nice. It's also the reason why I think an 8v8 version might be viable. It's a good size, and the fact that there's so much like terrain variance, there's bridges, there's ruins, there's little walls people can climb up and hop around and on, and things like that. There's loops around big line of sight areas. It might counter the fact that 8v8 Guild Wars 2 is a massive, utter mess. It's just a pile of garbage, but good level design could maybe fix that, or at least like curb it a bit. 5v5 is still probably best, just because it's possible for players to get away with things by sneaking around. With 16 people on the field, it might end up just being impossible for anyone to miss anything, just because 16 people on the field, how are you gonna? There's so many eyes everywhere. But for real, like 3 years, everybody, 2.5, whatever. Yeah, it's like 2 3/4, almost 3 years. We finally got like an 8 out of 10 map. Like an 8 out of 10 game mode with a single map. It's not just a map. It's so like 3 years effectively after launch, It's not even talking development time. ANET has given us an 8 out of 10 PvP game mode with a single map to it. It's not bad. It's not bad.